back to the podcast this week, guys. It's good to be here with you. We've got Kelsey, John, and Carrie, and myself jumping in on this week as we talk about what? What are we talking about this week, guys? Simplicity. All right. So something that I'm sure everybody knows about and everybody practices on a regular basis. So
Sure.
I think we'll find out that this is one that not a lot of people know about and have practiced before. I know for me it was definitely something that I had never really heard about until I read the book. So definitely a new concept. But yeah, so we'll kind of begin talking about it. And this is one that, as we've said for all the other ones, this takes time to implement. It's not something that's just going to take place over the span of a day and all of a sudden you'll be an expert at it. This is something that we have to make a part of our lives. And as we said, just kind of this whole idea behind this series is this is a lifestyle. This isn't just a 1 day, 1 week, 1 month type thing. This is a lifestyle as we try to reflect the lifestyle of Jesus and the way that he lived. So yeah, so excited for this, and we'll go ahead and jump in. So question number 1 is, I'll split it up. So have you guys ever heard of the practice of simplicity? We'll kind of say before we did this book, this series, had you ever heard of it? Yeah.
I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I've heard of the practice of simplicity. I feel like a couple years ago, and slowly started trying to implement that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's definitely a practice, and it's definitely like you kind of have to like rewire your brain a little bit, rewire your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
As you continue to practice that, you get better at it. So.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I don't think I had heard of it from a spiritual practice standpoint. As I looked at the principles of simplicity and talked about those, I realized I do practice a majority of them, but I never heard it explained around the arena of simplicity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would agree with John. I think a lot of the concepts are familiar, but just kind of putting it into that context was something that I hadn't heard before. I mean, we've all heard of like Marie Kondo, like if it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it, and you know, like you explained
I
on.
haven't heard of that.
Oh, the Marie Kondo method, like everything.
The ladies have.
Thank you for that clarity.
I was going to say, John, I was in the same boat with you. I'm just sitting there not alone.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds great.
It's actually a verb. It's in our vernacular now. Like you have to Marie Kondo that stuff. Like it's a way of getting rid of your things and only keeping the things that bring you joy.
It's interesting.
So, but also, like you said yesterday in the sermon, the minimalist lifestyle is something that is fairly common thing to think through and try to model. So, or do.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that minimalist lifestyle is something that's kind of picking up speed as you get the coming from Liberty University, where you have all of the hipster crowd and things like that. It's very much becoming a mindset that's in some sense maybe a little new age, but hey, that's just what people are.
I think it's definitely that, like, we don't want to be tied to a place or our stuff, and so we're just gonna keep minimizing until we can live the way we want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So kind of the follow-up then to that would be, what does simplicity look like for you, and what's the biggest challenge in kind of living a simplistic lifestyle?
You want to start, Carrie?
Sure. What does it look like for me to live a simple life?
And the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge? I think for me, it is a constant practice of just checking in with, why do I feel like I want something, or what am I getting from the idea of shopping for something or longing for something, instead of just following through with the idea of buying something new or getting that thing I'm longing for, but stopping at the longing or the thing that is, and saying, why am I feeling like I need this in my life? What will that thing or that trip or that online shopping 15 minutes, what is that giving me instead of why do I want the actual thing? There's a reason sometimes behind shopping for something or longing for something, and that's where I want to stop myself and say, is this true and right, or is this something that I'm trying to cover up or feel something different or avoid a hard thing because I'm fixing it, my emotions, or pleasing or calming myself with shopping or buying or dreaming of a trip or something that, you know, doesn't allow me to keep my life simple. Does that make sense?
You're almost describing it has a soothing effect.
It does. It's like anything. Yeah, it's anything.
Therapeutic feel.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would say, I do that with food, or I do that with TV, or in the shopping and the, you know, even just keeping something, you know, keeping a browser open online to see what's coming next or what's there. Like, it's kind of so I have to really kind of check in with that and make sure that I'm not using that to avoid
other things that need
things.
attention. Yeah. How about for you, Kelsey?
For me, it looks like, well, where I kind of started with the whole practice of simplicity was I realized, like, whenever I had a free day or a free afternoon or something, like, I was shopping. Like, I was going out and going to the stores and just, you know, looking for something new and exciting, that sort of thing. And I came to a point where I realized that it was making me feel like those trips were making me feel irritable and then essentially like unfulfilled. And like I would get home and I would, you know, get home late and I'd have to like rush to make dinner or, you know, like spending money. And yeah, I was just like, it felt very rushed and hurried and I was irritable. And I realized I didn't like feeling that way, and even sometimes like anxious too because of all that. So I realized like I kind of had to take a step back and figure out like why, like, do I like feeling that way? Do I like living like that? So I took a step back and realized, like, am I content with my life? Am I like finding like, am I grateful for what I have and things that I do have? So it was a kind of still is like a journey to be content with where I am and what I have. And kind of like you said, just asking the questions and maybe like simplifying one spot in my house and then living with that and then, you know, reevaluating and just kind of always that journey and just the rewiring of my mind and realizing that there are other things that made me feel more fulfilled than shopping. And like I didn't want to feel irritable and anxious and that sort of thing. So
it's interesting.
Yeah, that's kind of where I came to with that.
So mine's a little different. I think for me, there's not a lot that I feel drawn to buy or purchase, even though I kind of joked about that when I walked through the store. I do literally think, oh, I could use this or I could use this, but I don't spend money on all those things.
Right.
And I'm pretty disciplined with spending, even though I would tend to be the spender, my wife the saver in our relationship. But I think the area where I tend to spend, where I'm faced with the most challenges, I'm a reader, and so I really, really like to read. And so I have to really fight the urge to not just buy more books. I mean, if there's one thing, so like even in my office, I have 4 bookshelves, and I've chosen to limit the books that I can own that they have to fit on those 4 shelves. So every year, I've started this about 5 or 6 years ago, I will go through these books and I will say, okay, what haven't I read? What don't I need? And I'll take them out, take this big pile, and find a good place to contribute them to, you know, at Mennonite Central Committee or
I have some of the old books that you were giving away.
Pass them along to Matt. You know, I've sent them to, you know, Adamstown Library for their annual book sale. So, and that's just a way for me to set boundaries on those things. And so, Yeah, so I think it's a little different for me, but I think still has the same principles that you guys are describing because I do enjoy reading, and it can actually be an escape for me. I can get lost in the story, and so kind of step away from the real world or the challenges or the pressures, So it's a little different. So I think part of what we're illustrating is that everybody's journey is different, and this is not about cleaning out your closet, but paying attention to what's getting in the way of my life. To be present with people and to be present in my relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, John, it's interesting that you say that because I think for myself, the thing that I honestly used to spend the most money on, like that I would go shopping for all the time, was shoes. I was a shoe guy, and
You still are.
I still am. I will say not as much.
That's
When myself and Rachel moved into our new place, I purged a lot of shoes because I needed to. But I think the interesting thing is when I decided, hey, I need to stop spending so much money on shoes because these are just shoes, and I was doing so because the image, you have nice shoes, and people are like, they comment, and it makes you feel good.
Man, I get that.
It's like when you were saying, hey, why am I buying these things? What does it make me feel like? What's the question? I'm like, yeah, it makes me feel good when people notice the shoes. But it was funny when I realized, I need to stop spending so much money on shoes because these are just shoes. These aren't worth anything. My thought process was, well, you know what? I'll go spend my money on something that's actually more worthwhile and educational, and I'll buy a ton of books. And so I'm on Kindle online, and I'm just like, oh, $3, buy.
Right.
$4, buy. That's cheap. 99 cents, awesome. And I'm like, and I sit there and look at my Kindle library, and I'm like, I still haven't read probably a third of these books, but I keep buying more, and I'm never going to get to the end of it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's one of those, like, I think for my mind, it was, well, this is more educational. This is better time spent than, shoes. But I'm still not simplifying my lifestyle. I'm still adding more to it and realizing I have a never-ending list of books to read, and I feel like, I just kind of rush through these.
It makes you anxious in some ways, like Kelsey was saying, like.
Yeah, because then I'm like, I don't know what book to read now,
Right,
and then
you're
I
stressed about the reading,
stress
yeah.
out. So it sometimes feels like a never-ending cycle. But so then in follow-up to that, kind of question number 2 would be, which one of the 10 practices of a simple life are inviting or challenging to you? And this is something, John, that you talked about in your sermon just yesterday. So if you wanted to, I know you have the handout that you...
Yeah, here's the card that we gave everybody. I encourage you to put this somewhere so you can see it and kind of think about it and pay attention to it. I'll jump in first on this one. I think the one for me, it kind of follows up. It's learn to enjoy things without owning them. So can I enjoy a book without owning it? So I'm like, okay, I got to go back to the library and start getting books from the library and taking. I used to do that all the time when I didn't have a little bit more discretionary income to buy books. And then like Matt said, I would find them cheap on Kindle and I would buy the books that all right, I got to go back to the library to buy that next Jack Reacher book. So, or reread that one. So anyway, So I think that was the one for me that jumped out that like, okay, I can and Adamstown's got a new library. I haven't seen it yet. So I'll go there and see what I can find.
Yeah.
So so that was the one for me. So.
Yeah, and I live 2 minutes from the Lidditz library, so
There
maybe
you
it's
go.
what I have to do.
No, you got to read all the books on your Kindle first, Matt. So.
Right.
Yeah. The bad thing is I still have a Lidditz library card that I really don't use. So I'm like,
There you go.
All right. Here you go, Kelsey. What about you?
For me, I really like the one, where'd it go? Oh, cultivate a deep appreciation for the simple pleasures. So for me, like simple pleasures are like, I recently learned to bake sourdough. So like I love doing that, and I love.
We love that you love that when
Yeah.
you share.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I still haven't tried it.
Sharing sourdough with my coworkers and family and friends, the process of sourdough actually makes you like slow down because it takes time, and like you need to be home to do it, and so just like cultivating that skill has been fun, and even just like being out in my garden and playing with my dog, taking walks with Mitch, and just things like that, and cultivating the simple pleasures, like those really fill me up, and like my cup is full after I do these things. So
That's good.
I really like
That's
that
good.
Yeah, that's great.
What do you care?
I think that a couple things come to mind. Giving things away is the first thing. I mean, I grew up in a household that survived on, yard sale finds, and my mom sewed our clothes, and we gardened, and so it was more of a like subsistence living, and we had yard sales and we went to yard sales. And so as I got into my adulthood and I married into a family it was a completely foreign concept to them, and so I think I probably stopped having yard sales and going to yard sales probably about 6 or 8 years ago. I think the last one I had was I sold my husband's library for him.
That's right, and I bought some of the books.
Yeah, you did.
We just pass them around. So.
But that was the last time I
funny.
did that,
That's
and
funny.
and so I think that like I can look back on that now, and when I clean up my house, what I would have done is set the whole thing up for a lot of anxiety and stress around getting the yard sale ready. And now what I do is I'll fill a bag of stuff that needs to go, and I'll put it in my car, and I'll take it to a place that I know is going to use it well, and what they resell it for, I appreciate what they do there. And so that is so much less stress than it used to be. And I can look at that and say, I'm so glad I made that decision. And when I see yard sales now, I'm like, oh, that's adorable. But I don't have the like urge to like and like pull over and run around and look. Like that's gone now. So that's exciting. And
That's good.
and then never impulse buy. That's really hard. I struggle with this with my daughter because she wants things, and when I was a kid, like I said, it was pretty like I wouldn't say scarce, but we didn't have a lot, and so I was never allowed to buy like I would want a bracelet or a squishy or something, and it was never a yes ever. And so with her, I want to say yes all the time because it's kind of like I'm redeeming that no that I got my whole life through her, and I think I have to stop doing that like all the time. So
Sorry, Riley, you're going to hear no a little bit
baby.
more often.
But,
Wait 24 hours, Riley. So
I have to find other ways to redeem my inner child, not
Yes.
do it through her. But it's so fun to do that for her. But it's
Sure.
but also there's limits there.
Yeah,
So
well, that's
those
good.
are the two things that stand out to me.
It's good. It's good,
Yeah.
Carrie.
Well, I think we all understand that this is a tough one. Not that the other ones aren't, but this one just has a degree of toughness to it because, like Carrie, as you said, some of this even comes from the way you grew up.
Yeah.
And so it still impacts you today. And then, and we hear, hey, you know what? Some things, it was just, we had the time to do it. And so we would, and then realizing, hey, this doesn't fulfill me in the way I want to. It actually makes me a person I don't really want to be. So now it's, I've got to figure out what kind of person do I want to be. And then John, you even said like, these books, they're books. Like we think reading's great and you're a learner. And it's like, well, I'm trying to, expand my mind, expand my learning and my knowledge. And yet it's like, these are things that we're just accumulating more and more of. And so learning to give ourselves boundaries is hard. It's really difficult. And so I think maybe just don't want to speak on behalf of everybody. I think, but in some cases, we have to learn to set boundaries on our lives. And I think that comes into play with all of these disciplines that we've talked about through this series is you've got to learn to be a disciplined person and create boundaries for yourself so that you can have the time for the things that do matter. And simplicity, Kelsey, I think your sourdough illustration was good because you said, it forces me to be home and to be present because it takes time. You said you literally have to slow down to do it. So it's like, all right, are we putting things in our lives that are good things that actually force us to slow down so that we can utilize our time better, pour into our relationship with God to really grow in that aspect and realize that, hey, this slowed down lifestyle is just simply better for us. And so, so just remember, this takes time. This is not an immediate switch. This is something that, hey, it's going to become a lifestyle, and it's something that you will have to continually practice each and every day. But Yeah, so thanks for jumping in, guys. Appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening in. And next week, we are talking about the discipline of Scripture, I believe, right?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Scripture. Yeah.
Okay, and that will finish off our series, correct?
It will, yeah.
Alrighty, so we've got one more week of this. So stick with us for one more week. We're excited to see where this will go and how this will continue to impact our staff and the church as well. So thanks, guys, and we will see you next week.